Okay, the next topic is taking. And there's a word named hold out. It is also related to taking. Taking in Korean word, I said here, is 수용. What taking means is government has a power to restrict the individual's property right. Think about the situation. No, I talk a lot about coronavirus situation because it's such a evident example now everybody would understand. This coronavirus, you have a hospital and it has a lot of bed. But of course, you don't want to have the corona infected people in your hospital because then you have a lot of problem. Nobody will come to your hospital. Then people say, oh, no, you're coronavirus infected. Don't come to my hospital. I refuse. I mean, the hospital is yours. And, in just naive thinking, you have the right. I mean, you're a doctor, you own a house. You have the right to take care of the patient you like. And sometimes some patients are so sick out of your capacity, you can refuse and things like that. But that freedom of property allowed, no hospital in the world, maybe no, not. Many of the hospitals would refuse to get infected patients. Then the medical system would collapse. So the government may order for this infected patient, the hospital cannot refuse to receive the patient. So you have to receive any infected patient, things like that. But then the government restricted the hospitals and doctors' property right of refusing the patient. So things like this, or you have a government has a new highway and it goes from Seoul to maybe Gangneung, and then you need the land. In order to build the highway, you need the land. But then some people in the middle say, oh, I don't want to sell. The government said, come on, you have to sell. Of course, we'll give you the money, but you have to sell. By government power, I order you to sell. So that obviously risks the property right because someone might refuse to sell, but government say, this highway is so important, you should do that. Or sometimes some people build a house in each land and government say, no. That forest is so important. We prohibit the owner of the forest to cut down the tree because the tree is so vital for the environment and things like that. So these things happen a lot. You own something and basically you can do anything with your property, but only the government can prevent you doing something with your property. The government obviously didn't pay anything, so it's not very good. I mean, the government may overuse its power of taking. However, we understand still when you're making highway, when you're concerning the infected patient case or environmental protection, the government should have a power to limit the freedom of the owner. Okay. Once again, there are great examples, many examples of how the government may overuse it. Like, it's environmental, it's not necessary what government does that. This highway is not really have to go through this land, but government to force it to sell and things like that. Why? Without taking, the government should. Another way of taking, substitute of taking is the government can pay. For example, if the forest is so important environmentally, the government should purchase the land. It's such a poor thing. If you are owner of that forest and you plan to build a nice house in there and have a happy life surrounded by forest, however, government says, no. You cannot build any small house in there, kind of thing, because it's so important. Then you say, come on, then you should purchase the forest. Then, you don't have to restrict me. So in a sense, why government do the taking? Well, because it's necessary for the benefit of the whole nation. But another word is they don't want to pay. They don't want to pay. They just use their power and get the right freely, something like that. So it's at first you may think, oh, taking is very good. Otherwise, how can you run a government? But then from the other side, government, it's very easy for the government to overuse it and unnecessarily violate the property right of the people. You want to do something and all of a sudden government came in and said, you cannot do that. Why? Because government want to do this and do that. But then people would be anxious to purchase any land and do anything because our government can all of a sudden prevent you from doing whatever you want to do, and you would have a huge monetary loss. However, government has another strong point. That is holdout. When government want to have a highway and, the land may be $100, but then the government say, oh, we'll pay only $50. That is overuse of power. The government order me to sell $100 land at $50. That is really, really bad government. That's why the taking should be careful. On the other hand, it's $10 land, and Prashan is the owner of the land, and he knows that this is vital. Without my land, highway impossible, or new KTX line impossible, the bullet train line in Korea. Then I would say $100. Please give me 100 million, I would say. Because you know that without the land, there's no bullet train, there's no highway. So government might give you not 100 million, but maybe 1 million when the actual value is only $100. Okay? Because, without 1 million spending, there's no highway. That's a huge blow to the economy. So there are these bad individuals who want to exploit this opportunity and make justifiably big money. And we call that holdout. I keep insisting, oh, highway, I don't care. I don't want to sell this land. This is very important. Meaning, even though it's $100 land, pay me 1 million kind of thing. This behavior happens everywhere. If you search on the internet, holdout, 알박기, there are very interesting pictures. There's a highway, but small land is remaining. There's a house in the middle of the highway because this guy wouldn't want to sell. So this holdout thing is happening almost every case when government do some not only government, some big company do some big construction, they do that. So in that sense, the government say, oh, Professor Han, $100 is enough. Maybe we can give you 120, but 1 million, that's too much. We are going to use the power of taking and pay you $120, and you got to sell it to the government so that we can have a highway. So this holdout. So against taking, you may argue, you should pay. Even though you're government, you should pay. But then when you face holdout, you may kind of admit, okay, taking might be necessary sometimes. There's an interesting case I introduced from the book. It's Mr. Nolan against California Coastal Commission. California Coastal Commission is a government organization to protect the tourist value and environmental value of the California coastal area. California coast is the western side of America, so it faces the Pacific Ocean. And then the sunset into the Pacific Ocean, and there are so many beautiful places. And California Coastal Commission want to protect the scenery, the beauty of the coastal area, the beach, and everything. What does that have anything to do with Nolan? Mr. Nolan is a man living in California. He has a house just next to the beach. So his house, he get out of his house, that is the beach of California. Very beautiful place, must be a rich guy. And Mr. Nolan has a maybe 2-story building, but he said, oh, I need a bigger house. So I want to raise my house to 3-story building, another extra floor. But then when Nolan wanted to do that, California Coastal Commission, CCC, called him and said, you cannot do that. Nolan said, oh, it's my house. I can do whatever I want to do. No, no, no. If you raise your building, then the scenery would be bad. Okay, the people cannot see the backside of your house. People walk through and they want to see the coastal view from that walking place. But if you raise another story of your building, that blockade the whole view, so the view would not be as good as before, so you cannot do that. Well, that is taking. The government does not take anything from Nolan, but Nolan's property right to raise his building on his land is limited by the California Coastal Commission. If the story ends there, that would be no dispute. But then, several days later, the California Coastal Commission calls Nolan again. Nolan said, why? You prevent me from raising another floor. And CCC said, oh, we found out a way for you to raise another floor. Nolan said, how? If you allow us to walk in front of your house. So the Nolan's house, and in front of it, the beach is Nolan's property. But if you allow us to make a road in front of your house so people can go through it, then we are willing to permit you to raise another floor. Make it the 2-story building into 3-story building. And Nolan at this point sued the CCC. And Nolan has won. The point is, if the CCC says why it prevented Nolan to raise another floor is because Nolan's building blockade the view. Okay. However, the CCC basically say, if you allow us to use the front area of your house, we are willing to make you raise another floor. So basically, the CCC's argument has contradiction. If you think that would harm the scenery and blockade the view, then you should do that. But then it seems like now it's perfectly okay for Nolan to have one more story up, but on the condition that you let me use the frontal area of your house. So it can be readily interpreted as if the CCC want to use the front yard of Nolan's house. So when Nolan want to raise its building, it prevented at first, even though it does not hurt the scenery so much. Then it said, okay, we may allow it, so please let me use your front area, front yard. So it's basically CCC is blackmailing Nolan to get the use of its front yard freely, not paying anything to him. So it's the judge of California think it is overuse and misuse of the power of taking from the California Coastal Commission. I mean, it's a little bit difficult to visualize itself, but if you go to the internet where this Robert Cooter and Thomas Ullen posted their textbook freely on the internet. So Law and Economics, Robert Cooter and Thomas Ullen, you type it, then you can freely access the textbook they posted on the internet. Then you can find out the picture. Then it would be much easier for you to understand what I'm explaining right now. Okay, thank you.